You're watching the Brother Henry and You Show.
Engaging. Informative. Inspirational.
Enjoy today's program.
Hello, my precious friends. I am excited to be back with you for another special episode. We've been talking about the walk through rejection, and I really believe it has impacted many of you in several ways, and I'm really excited to be able to continue this series with you. And today we're going to be talking about rejection is a blessing in disguise. How many know that sometimes rejection is a blessing in disguise? Being rejected many times is not always a bad thing. Even though it may be a painful experience, it's not always a bad thing. Being told no is not always a bad thing. Being turned down is not always a bad thing. So today we're going to just look at this again from another perspective and try to see the blessing part of it instead of the curse part of it. So let's face it, no one likes or celebrates the feeling of rejection. I don't see anyone holding parades saying, oh, I love rejection. I love rejection. Nobody likes rejection. Nobody celebrates rejection. The concept of rejection or being rejected being a blessing seems nonsensical and unrealistic. It doesn't seem realistic, does it? Rejection, as you've heard me overemphasize quite a bit, is painful. But it's not necessarily bad for us. If anything, it's actually healthy for us. How many know that? It's not always bad for us. In many cases, it's healthy for us. I often look back at times where I was rejected, whether by something or someone, and at the time when I found it hard to embrace the ones who were rejecting me, years later, I am grateful for the rejection I had received. You know why? Because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if they hadn't said no. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if they hadn't rejected me. So at the time when I was experiencing rejection, it was hard to receive. But I'm at a point in my life now where I look back and I say, hey, thank you for turning me down. Thank you for saying no. Your no was my blessing in disguise. Your rejection of me, for whatever reasons it was a blessing in disguise. It made me who I am today. So instead of viewing rejection as bad, why don't we look at it today from a different approach? How often do we celebrate the word no? Nobody likes the word no. That makes people cringe when you say no. I'm glad I was rejected. I'm glad I was turned down because it created an opportunity for me to grow. And when people turn you down, it creates an opportunity for you to grow. Will you be where you're at today if you hadn't been rejected? Would you think about that for a second? Would you be where you're at today if you hadn't been rejected? I'll give you a brief testimony of how my show got started. I had no cameras. I had no mic. I had nothing but a vision. But I felt like God was calling me in the year of 2009 to start a show. I had no support system. So I started my show, and there was a time in that period where I started where I became very discouraged. I used to invite people on my show. They wouldn't come. They wouldn't connect with me for reasons unknown to me. I don't know to this day. It made me discouraged because I felt like God was telling me to take the risk, even if it means losing everything. Take the risk and step out. I'm calling you to do something far more greater. I'm about to create something in you with this show that is bigger than yourself. Now, at the time when I heard God said this, I thought God was crazy. I said, God, you don't realize everybody's saying no. They're turning me down. I'm getting denial letters in the mail and in my emails. No, we cannot accept your interview request at this time for whatever reason. So you got to understand, the rejection I received with what I'm talking about now was devastating because I wanted to do what God had called me to do. Well, even in those times where I wanted to give up on my show and wanted to just throw in the towel, I really felt the Lord, tell me that it's not over. And because I stayed persistent, I'm talking about through all the no's, through all the rejection, through all the pain, through all the hurt, through all those who didn't believe in me or didn't believe in what I did, because I stayed persistent into the call and what I felt like God has called me to do, God had and has opened great doors of opportunity for me on my show. I've interviewed a lot of popular people. Many of you have probably seen some of the interviews. I've interviewed Dr. Maya Angelou, Carmen, Sandy Patty, Paul Young, the author of The Shack, and so many more other people. And I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying it because what if I had given up? What if that person that had told me no, and I felt like that was my fate? What if I would have really just quit, even though I felt like doing it at that time? What if I would have just really quit and said, you know what, just hell with it? Because at the time, that's exactly how I felt. But I'm just saying that to say, when you put a seed in the ground, it don't grow overnight. And sometimes you may not see the results right away, but if you stay persistent, if you stick with what God has called you to do, He will have His blessings on it. You may get turned down, you may be told no, but it's not your fate. It's not the end. Some people cease to live when they hear the word no. But you know what, for me, when I hear the word no now, it's like adding an extra breath to my life. It's liberating because I use that now as a stepping stone to success. And that's how my show has become successful. It's not exactly where I wanted to be, but if you look back at where I was at and where I'm at now, you'll see a huge difference. God's blessed us with new equipment. He's done so many great things. And I'm just saying this to tell you that if God's planted a seed in your heart, no matter who rejects it or who don't support you, God will send the right people in your life at the right time to help you to enhance that vision that God has given you. I'm glad I didn't give up. You might be thinking, why didn't I get that job? Why did they turn me down? Why was I not good enough? Why did they get the promotion and I didn't? I've said this quite a few times actually, and these are valid and good questions if you were to ask me. Instead of asking why, maybe we should look at where you are at today. That if you hadn't been rejected, if you hadn't been turned down, if you hadn't been hurt, if you hadn't been told no, you wouldn't be where you're at today. I don't care who you are, just like me. I just told you my story. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if they hadn't told me no. Sometimes no is a stepping stone to something far more greater than yourself. I believe that. Just because somebody say no doesn't mean it's the end of the world for you. That could be your stepping stone to something far more greater that's bigger than you. You probably can't even see this. This thing that God wants to do with you and what you feel like God's called you to do, and even if it's not in terms of something spiritual, maybe you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and you may have gotten turned down by a university, or you may be making bad grades or whatever, and teachers may say no. I'm using this for an example. Don't let that stop you. Keep working hard. Because if you work hard, you keep pressing, you can achieve anything. Did you not know that there's nothing that you can do? There's nothing that you cannot do. You can be whatever you want to be. You can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. And you do not have to let the words no or rejection stop you. Sometimes I wonder, Why can't we see the beautiful blessings in rejection? Why do we always look for the word yes? We act as though rejection is our fate, and by being rejected, it's the end of the world. We tend to go into self-pity mode. Why do we always look for a yes? My friend Catherine Toon, she always says, you're not free to say yes until you're free to say no. And when she said that, that stuck with me, and that is so true. You're not free to say yes until you're free to say no. You can't expect a yes in every situation. No matter what you want to do, you're going to get rejected. I said this in the first broadcast. It's unavoidable. You can't resist it. You're going to be rejected. One thing rejection did for me was it taught me to embrace and accept the reality of the situation. Because sometimes we don't want to. Maybe you applied for a job or whatever the case may be, and only you know it, and you got rejected. Sometimes it's hard for us to come to terms to accepting that reality that, did they not just reject me? Did they not just turn me down? Did they just say no? The reality is, yes, they did. Now you need to embrace that and you need to move on, because it's not the end of the world. If you were rejected in that area, there's something much more greater for you. Now listen to this. Anytime you think of the word rejection, I want you to consider these three things. Number one, rejection doesn't mean denial or delayed. Number two, rejection creates something bigger for you. Number three, rejection is an opportunity to pat yourself on the back. Sometimes we can't wait on other people to do it. You pat yourself on the back. Today, release yourselves from all the hurt and disappointments. Learn, and learn is a progressive word. Some of us have to learn, or learning. Learn to celebrate the word no and embrace who you fully are. You're not defined by rejection. You're not defined by the word no. You're not defined by being turned down. You're defined by who you are. And you are greater than the rejection that you're receiving. Rejection doesn't mean life has ended for you. It means that life has just begun. My rejection was my blessing. My no was my blessing. I fully accept this truth at face value, no matter what the situation is. I can't change it, but I can change my perspective on how I receive rejection. Tune in next week as we go into part 4 of our series, The Walk Through Rejection. And next week we will be talking about what's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Well, we'll find out. Why do you feel that way? We'll talk about that next week. Tune in. I look forward to seeing you. God bless.
Hi, my name's Heather. Thank you for watching the Brother Henry and You show today. If you've enjoyed the show today, visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You show. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.